Mongolians marked the beginning of their short summer, as they do every year, with the traditional Nadam festival. But for the first time in its 800-year history, there were no spectators, a health precaution during a global pandemic. Still, there was reason to celebrate. Mongolia had already defeated the coronavirus. To date, not a single death and a little over 300 cases have been recorded, all of them imported, meaning zero community transmission, in a country of about 3.25 million. How is this possible? This is one of the most sparsely populated countries in the world. Livestock here outnumber human beings 22 to 1. But half the population live in the polluted capital, Ulaanbaatar, where COVID-19 should have thrived. It's an accomplishment that some Mongolians say is a result of their traditional way of life, and an inner strength that dates back to 12th century conqueror Genghis Khan. Yet what is more likely to have made the difference in Mongolia was an early and decisive response to the threat emerging in neighbouring China. Success has come at a cost. Businesses have been hard hit. And as the country closed its borders, thousands of Mongolians working abroad were left stranded, with no way of returning home. At the back of an empty lot in Mongolia's capital, Shaman Biambadoch, a spiritual advisor, is telling fortunes. People come here for advice, words of wisdom and blessings for good luck. They also pray for good health. And so far their prayers have been answered. As early as January 27, Mongolia closed its borders with China, only 4 days after Chinese authorities locked down Wuhan. All schools were shut and mask wearing in public was made mandatory. A track and trace system was put into action with isolation wards at hospitals and quarantine facilities for all Mongolians returning from abroad. By the time the country recorded its first case on March the 10th, and as the WHO declared a pandemic, Mongolia was already shut off from the world. Early intervention had worked.
Mongolians truly understood how dire the impact of it could be for them. Ulaanbaatar is one of the most polluted capital cities in the world in the wintertime. And so a respiratory infection like the coronavirus would be absolutely devastating to Mongolia, which is a country that doesn't have the hospital capacity, the respirator capacity to handle something like that.
The country was even able to hold national elections in June, albeit with a shortened time frame.
Well, indeed, we have to commend the government for successfully preventing from any community spreads of the coronavirus in Mongolia. But I think that came at a great cost, a great expense, and a great sacrifice to the people of Mongolia.
Among those hard hit by Mongolia's early self-isolation were the thousands of its citizens working abroad. In February, as COVID-19 started spreading around the world, they were given only 7 days to return home. Amabolt Narmandak and members of his family were left stranded in South Korea.
With
no work, Amabolt's family ran out of money to pay rent. With nowhere else to go, they joined dozens of other expats sleeping outside the Mongolian embassy. When they finally returned to Mongolia in late July, they were quarantined in basic accommodation blocks for 21 days at their own expense. Amabolt found the conditions suffocating. Frustrated Mongolians stuck abroad organised protests outside their embassies. As public pressure mounted, the government stepped up repatriations. By the end of September, about 23,000 Mongolians had returned home, leaving just under 11,000 stranded in 55 different countries. Nyumhu Dolma, head of the National Communicable Disease Center, is the face of Mongolia's coronavirus response effort. He's been compared to Dr. Anthony Fauci in the United States. When we questioned Dolma about the Mongolians stuck abroad, he went on the defensive.
Гэтэл одоо энэ зүгээр нөгөө гаднаас ирж чадахгүй байгаа хэдэн хүний сэтгэл санаан дээр тоглож ингэж гайхуулж өөрийгөө одоо тэдний төлөө хамгийн их санаа зовж байгаа мэтээр ярьж байгаа энэ урагч.
But a successful COVID-19 fight has come at the expense of the economy, which is heavily reliant on exports. 90% of all exported goods go to China.
Mongolia has a limited ability to cope with economic shocks because of the state that it's in right now. So the coronavirus once again highlighted that vulnerability. When Mongolia had to shut that border with China, its economy went into free fall.
In the first 6 months of this year, Mongolia's GDP shrunk by nearly 10%. The cashmere industry, which employs around 10,000 people, relies on foreign demand for luxury goods. It's the country's second largest export after coal and minerals. Barkas Bate Boltbata is worried about his business if the borders remain closed.
Манайх ямарчсан 3 сүлжмлийн одоо эцсийн бүтээгдэхүүний 3 дэлгүүр утасны 1 дэлгүүр хүртэл одоогийн байдлаар бол зогсоогоод хаацсан байна. Дотоодын худалдаа авалт бол бүр тэг болсон. Одоо бол зөвхөн гадаадын захиалга хийж л ажиллаж байна. Дотоодын дэлгүүр байгаад ерөөхдөө ямар ч хэрэггүй борлуулалт бага учраас.
About a third of Mongolians live in poverty, earning less than $2 a day. But living standards have increased, especially among rural herders. The current economic contraction threatens to erase that progress and send nearly half of the country below the poverty line. As fall arrives, Mongolia's coronavirus lockdown is easing. Students are in the classroom, but only 3 days per week. Until borders reopen and schools can operate full-time, this recovery will be limited.
A lot of single moms can't go back to work because they have kids and they have no one to look after their kids. So it's they're kind of falling back in this cycle of poverty.
Throughout their long history, Mongolian people have survived harsh weather conditions, wars and political upheaval. And for Shaman Biambadurch and his followers, the virus delivers a humbling reminder for Mongolians who have forgotten the ancient way of life.
Ийм л юмд одоо хойч үлдээ одоо ийм хэрэгтэй байсан. Энэ өвчин бол тийм их дэлхийн ариун байгаль нь нутгаар нь ариун одоо газар шороо малтахгүй уул усан туршихгүй бол энэ өвчин айх өвчин биш.